When the Chinese billionaire mocked the black waiter, nobody expected his epic 3 a.m. reply. The night was thick with tension, buzzing like an electric current, as the upscale restaurant's chandeliers flickered ominously above. The wealthy elite, dressed in their tailored suits and glistening gowns, were oblivious to the storm brewing in a corner booth. The air was heavy, suffocating almost, as laughter echoed around the room, a jarring contrast to the dark scorn etched on the billionaire's face. He leaned back, swirling his expensive wine, piercing the black waiter with a glance that could shatter bones. What started as an ordinary evening shifted into something sinister. You could feel the unease ripple through the air like a cold wind sweeping through a quiet town. The waiter, a young man with sweat pooling under his collar, felt each mockery like daggers slicing through his pride. "You must think you're a king here, serving drinks and carrying trays," the billionaire sneered, his laugh ringing hollow, echoing against the marble walls. The waiter's chest tightened, a lump forming in his throat as he forced a weak smile, fighting back tears of humiliation. This was not just a job, it was a test of dignity, but the clock ticked ominously. Just as everyone thought the night would only drown in disdain, something shifted. A stranger entered the restaurant, cloaked in shadows, eyes sharp and piercing. The hum of conversation tapered into whispers as the air charged with curiosity. Who was this newcomer? The billionaire's focus flickered like the candle flames, igniting a flicker of fear. In that moment, anticipation hung heavier than the velvet curtains. It was 3 a.m. Why was he here? Just then, the stranger locked eyes with the waiter, an understanding passing between them, as if they shared a hidden secret. What had been a night of mockery was suddenly a stage for something greater. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." The billionaire's laughter faltered, sensing a swell of power rising within the waiter. The young man's trembling hands steadied, eyes narrowing. A voice whispered from the back of his mind, a call to rise against the mockery. As the new figure stepped further into the light, a chilling grin spread across his face, hinting at a revenge that would shake the very foundations of the wealthy elite's world. What would happen next? Would the waiter find his strength, or would the billionaire's mocking laughter drown out a chance at justice? The clock continued to tick, and all eyes waited in anxious silence. The stranger moved closer, almost gliding through the crowd, and time stretched out, each second tainted with suspense. Eyes were glued to the newcomer. He was a storm, ready to unleash chaos on this luxurious, sterile environment. The waiter could feel his pulse quicken, each heartbeat echoing a silent rallying cry. Enough was enough. "Who is that?" Someone murmured from a table nearby, voice fraught with intrigue. The billionaire's features hardened, tension knotting under his perfectly tailored collar as he leaned forward, trying to assess this unexpected threat. "Just keep serving, boy," he barked at the waiter, but now, his words dripped with uncertainty, the once commanding tone wavering. The waiter's stomach churned. The laughter, the ridicule, it all threatened to consume him, but the stranger was there, lighting a fire within. "What if this is your moment?" The stranger seemed to say without words, his eyes locking onto the waiter with an intensity that demanded action. It felt as if a floodgate had burst open. Suddenly, the waiter's self-doubt was drowned under waves of determination. He straightened his spine. As the stranger reached the booth, he leaned down, nodding respectfully to the waiter, acknowledging him, elevating him from the shadows. "Tonight, we expose the truth," the stranger whispered, and an electric thrill skated down the waiter's spine. He couldn't help but reply, "And then what?" A smirk appeared, cool and confident. "Then we dismantle the idol that thinks he can tower over us all." The words hung in the air like a promise of fire and smoke. The billionaire watched, his face tightening with irritation. Get back to work. This isn't a playground. But his bravado was betraying him, cracking like glass under pressure. The murmurs from the nearby tables grew louder, ducking under the growing undercurrent of tension, echoing the possibilities that hung in the air. The waiter took a deep breath, glancing at the stranger, whose sharp angle of jaw and piercing gaze felt like a beacon. What do we do? He asked, daring to embrace the unknown. First, we need to reveal who he really is, came the quiet yet bold answer. The waiter's heart raced. The thrill of deception flickered in his thoughts, a deep, intoxicating danger beckoning him closer. Tonight, the stranger continued, shifting the atmosphere from hopelessness to revolution, you step into the light. You show them that the weaker can be strong. The billionaires laughed again, as if sensing a lost joke. It echoed through the restaurant, defiant and vicious, yet the waiter stood taller, a volcano of potential simmering just below the surface. Then a sudden crash. A glass splintered, shattered on the floor, and every gaze snapped toward the sound. Eyes widened. Who had committed this spectacle? The waiter and the stranger exchanged a glance. Something was about to explode. But no one could have predicted the chaos that lay on the precipice of emergence. As silence blanketed the room, tension thickened, and everyone held their breath. Do it, the stranger commanded softly to the waiter, his mouth curving into a knowing grin. It'll be the moment they can't ignore. The waiter's heart thudded, the decision weighing heavily. Could he really flip the script? And then, with a swift motion, he stepped forward, the words teetering on his tongue. The punch of adrenaline surged through him, and his voice pierced the air, steady and unwavering against the billionaire's chuckles. Who do you think you are, mocking me? Let us see who really deserves to be laughed at tonight. Every eye turned sharply to him, and whispers rippled through the crowd. The billionaire's expression morphed into disbelief, and from across the room, the tension escalated. What had he just unleashed? The waiter's pulse quickened, the night poised to spiral into something nobody had dared predict. The dance of confrontation was just beginning, and the stakes were nothing short of transformation. What would happen next? Would he find the strength he needed, or was this just the start of an even darker game? The billionaire's laughter clanged against the walls, an echo of disbelief wrapped in scoffs, but the waiter stood his ground. His heart hammered in his chest, each beat a defiance against the world he had so long accepted as truth. He felt the stranger's energy coiling around him, urging him forward. Who do you think you are? He shouted again, his voice cracking but fueled by the raw intensity inside him. This was not just about the mockery, it was about the years of subjugation hidden behind a mere smile, the painful memories of scornful glances thrown his way. The billionaire leaned back, eyes widening. You think you can talk to me like that? He sneered. You're nothing but a stop. The stranger interjected, stepping closer. The interruption drew a heavy silence, the kind that chewed on the tension prickling the air. Who are you? The billionaire spat, directing his temper toward the unknown man. Just another wannabe trying to play hero? Your downfall, actually, the stranger replied with chilling confidence. The defiance simmered like a spark in dry grass. Tonight, we rise, and you'll wish you never mocked the ones you thought were beneath you. A ripple of shock coursed through the crowd. Murmurs huddled in tight knots, people exchanging looks of disbelief. Are you threatening me? The billionaire asked, both taken aback and intrigued. He leaned in, challenging the stranger's bold gaze. Pathetic. You think a waiter and a freak can shake my empire? The tension hit an unbearable peak, and the waiter felt the stirrings of courage surge within him. So many others had stood back, frozen in fear, burdened by their own silence. Annoyed whispers flitted around, and it felt like every eye in the room was pinned to him, watching, waiting. Not just any freak, he blurted out, the words slipping free from the cage of fear. A man tired of your games. Tired of the echoes that drown out our voices. You hoard your power like a miser, but the truth wears a different mask tonight. With each word, the billionaire's smirk slipped further into something darker, visibly rattling his cool demeanor. "You'll regret this," he hissed, threats laced into his tone. Anger flared around the reality of aging privilege colliding with a newfound spirit of rebellion. Behind him, an older gentleman at a corner table leaned closer, his disbelief morphing into admiration. "What's that waiter's name?" he whispered, coaxing the attention of his companions. "Let us find out," another replied, eyes darting between the stranger and the confrontation now brewing like a tempest. The coup de thanks arrived as the tension shifted when the waiter could feel every pulse of silence morphing into invitation. "You think your money, your influence will save you from the truth? Look around. These laughs will turn to gasps once they see the cracks beneath your facade." The billionaires exchanged furtive glances, and there was a new air of uncertainty. Had the waiter just summoned a power even they couldn't shield themselves from? The stranger smiled, an obscure satisfaction gleaming behind his eyes, almost as though he had orchestrated this moment. Then, from the corner of the room, a woman stood, the head of the local media, her camera already aimed at this unfolding drama. "This is going to be one hell of a story," she muttered under her breath. "Bring it," the billionaire snapped, his bravado faltering as whispers erupted around him. The waiter, emboldened, took a step closer, ready to lay bare the truth he had so long buried. "You think money protects you? Let's expose the underbelly of your empire. Let us lay bare the thoughts you were too cowardly to share in broad daylight. You're not untouchable, not anymore." Cheers erupted from the other waiters and busboys lingering in the background, faces lighting up with pride. For the first time, it felt like a reckoning was within reach, and then everything changed. The lights flickered. Something crashed. A sudden darkness rushed like a tidal wave, interrupting the chaotic rhythm building in the air. "Brace yourself," the stranger yelled, urging the waiter to keep moving. Shadows thickened, and deafening silence blotted out the thumps of the waiter's heartbeat. "What is happening?" The waiter screamed over the rising panic, but there was no response. Something primal stirred within him. As questions swirled, a single figure loomed at the far end of the room, bathed in the eerie light of an emergency exit sign. Another storm? Who else is going to join the party? The unmistakable voice cut through the confusion, sending icy dread down the waiter's spine. The night was far from over. Would they stand and fight? Or would darkness take them when they least expected it? The emergency exit light flickered, casting ominous shadows that danced across the walls, creating chaotic shapes that twisted into the minds of the stunned crowd. The stranger's words hung in the air, electric, pulsing with anticipation. The figure looming at the end of the room stepped into view, a man cloaked in sharp, expensive threads, his face fixed in a smirk that dared anyone to challenge him. "Lin Zhao," he announced, his voice smooth as silk but edged with steel. "Some of you may recognize me. And if you don't, well, that won't matter for long." Gasps rippled through the sea of wealthy patrons, fingers pointed, whispers darting like fish through murky waters. Lin was known for his ruthlessness. Even towering fortunes trembled at the mention of his name. The waiter felt a lump in his throat, the confidence that had surged moments ago now felt fragile as glass. "What do you want?" he shouted, each syllable laced with stubborn bravery. "Oh, just a little entertainment," Lin replied, his tone dripping with condescension. "And perhaps a demonstration of your misplaced courage. I'm not here for a lecture on ethics, my friend." The tension curled in the air, palpable and dense, as Lin stepped forward, closer to the confrontation. He had an entourage, a gaggle of equally impressive-looking men who casually scanned the room, assessing the spectators like a predator sizing up its next meal. "Do you truly think shouting at the top of your lungs makes you a hero?" Lin continued, amusement playing at the corners of his mouth. "If only it were that simple. Wealth buys silence, and you, well, what do you have? A few cheers from the help?" A wave of murmurs erupted among the crowd again, half sneers, half delighted expressions. They couldn't look away. This was a spectacle they were powerless to resist as they watched the waiter stand his ground. "You don't get it," the stranger finally interjected, his voice steady but charged. "We are no longer afraid of you. Not tonight. Not anymore." Strong words. Lin laughed. "But really, what is a rebellion without accomplices? Shouldn't you be rallying the waitstaff? What do you plan to do against the likes of me?" Without a hint of warning, the lights flickered back to a piercing brightness. A triumphant spotlight cast a clarity over the tension, illuminating every emotion on display: the crowd's rising dread, the waiter's defiance, and Lin's smug dominance. But then another figure made their entrance, an influencer delighting in chaos, swagging up to the center stage. "Did someone say show? I'm ready for my close-up." Flawlessly choreographed chaos erupted. Lin's gaze narrowed, and the billionaire could feel the shift in the room's energy. It was unpredictable, tumultuous, alive. An itch of uncertainty crept up and gripped him. No matter how many zeros adorned his bank account, this was new territory. "Bring it on," Lin whispered, his bravado wavering, the masks cracking ever so slightly, exposing a glimpse of vulnerability. The unforgettable tension was shattered momentarily as the influencer went live, capturing every terrified face, relaying the truth to the world outside. Views skyrocketed, reactions erupting across social media. The mounting outrage ripped through the facade of strength that Lin had so carefully crafted. "Let us see who truly holds the power," the waiter declared, glancing at the stranger who had ignited this tempest. Hope flared within him. But Lin's eyes darkened, a storm gathering in their depths. He was not one to retreat easily. "You think this is a game?" he hissed, stepping forward, anger igniting his features. "This will not end well for you." The crowd watched, breaths hitched, moments tilting on the edge of chaos, each heartbeat sinking with the tension rising. Would they rally behind the waiter, emboldened by the moment, or would Lin's fury bring them back to their knees? All eyes sharpened, awaiting the next call to arms. The time for action had come and the outcome remained perilously unclear. The air was electric, each pulse filled with uncertainty. The crowd vibrated with a disbelieving tension, caught between shock and exhilaration. The influencer, boldly capturing the moment, had ignited something primal. Faces that once gleamed with privilege were now riddled with apprehension. Lin took a measured step forward, his entourage mirroring his movement, shifting into a tighter formation. The eyes of the crowd flickered between the escalating tension and the horizon of potential violence. They were watchers in a storm, drenched in a mixture of fear and exhilaration. "And what are these kinds of games you play?" Lin sneered, his voice dripping with mockery. "How many viewers did you say you had? A couple of thousand? That one save you?" The influencer, undeterred, laughed lightly, but it was the kind of nervous laugh that masked a deeper anxiety. "Oh, sweet Lin. You underestimate the power of a good show." Her phone gleamed like a shield, connecting her to a world eager for drama. "This is just the beginning." The waiter caught her eye, the flicker of courage sparking between them. "This isn't a joke anymore," he shouted, drawing attention back to himself. "We're done being silent." The crowd stirred, a whisper rippling like water across a lake. Lin's smirk dimmed as he noticed the shift. The energy glimmered with potential. Was he losing them? The skirt of rebellion was beginning to lift. With an exaggerated sigh, Lin waved his hand as if brushing away those difficult feelings. "You think you're all so noble, it's cute, really. But in my world, morality is just a trend, and trends fade fast." His words felt like acid in the air as they sunk into the crowd. For a moment, hope flickered too low to see. Was he right? Could this moment be quelled? The waiter clenched his fists, feeling the heat radiate beneath his skin. "People like you think they can play with others' lives because of money," the stranger spat, stepping in front of the waiter. "But you're wrong. We're stronger together. We always have been." The tension swelled again, thicker than before, rising like a tide eager to claim its shores. Lynn's eyes roamed the room, embers of rage flickering to life. You would honestly align yourself with these commoners? He practically spat out the last word, shattering the already fragile atmosphere, yet, there was a flicker in his eyes' fear. The realization washed over him, this was turning into something more than he could control. The crowd no longer felt like an audience, they felt like a chorus ready to rise in rebellion, filled with 1,000 hearts that synchronized, drumming in defiance. The influencer caught on swiftly, her voice rising above the tension. We're not just the audience. We're the ones who either allow you to keep playing God, or we can take the power back. You think your little show can protect you? Lynn fumed, taking a step closer, hands gripping the collar of his tailored suit. I'll crush this rebellion before it even begins. The air crackled again, danger simmering around them as the crowd pulsed with unrest. Names blurred together, voices echoed. Was it possible? Could they actually be the change? Lynn took yet another menacing step forward, determination chiseled into his features, feet planted like a titan. Try me. I'll show you what happens when someone crosses me. The waiter's heart raced. This was at the precipice of something revolutionary or destructive. He glanced toward the influencer, then the stranger, a raw, primal decision coursing through him. Where was the line drawn? Suddenly, the lights overhead flickered, plunging them into darkness for a split second before snapping back to life, amplifying the chaos. The crowd gasped, a wave of tension rippling through them. Something had changed, confrontation was imminent, and with every breath they shared, the weight of the moment hung heavy in the air. Would they stand and fight, or watch the dark man loom larger than life? Tonight, it's not just about you, Lynn, the stranger called out, determination thickening their voice. It's about all of us. As eyes locked in fierce determination, a pulse of possibility consumed the room. The battle lines were drawn, but who would strike first? The lights dimmed again, flickering nervously between resolve and fear, as a bubbling question surged, how far would each side go to claim their victory? The crowd held its breath, a collective pulse hammering with anxiety and anticipation. Lynn's expression twisted into one of contempt, but there was a crack in his facade. Fear flickered beneath his bravado, seeping into the edges of his confidence. The stranger stepped forward, heartbeat racing like a drum, defiance etched on their face. You've taken too much from us for too long, Lynn, they shouted, voice cutting through the tension. And we are done playing by your rules. Lynn laughed, but it sounded hollow. Behind him, his entourage shifted, uncertainty creeping into their stances. One of Lynn's loyal followers, a large man with muscles that seemed to fill the room, took a hesitant step back, a glimmer of doubt flashing in his eyes at the escalating scene. It was a subtle crack in Lynn's stonewall. Is this what you want? Lynn sneered, his voice dripping with disdain as he gestured towards the crowd. To rally these pathetic souls? He waved a dismissive hand at the collective, the arrogance born out of years of privilege ringing hollow. But the crowd was waking up. Shouts of agreement surged, fueled by anger and frustration that had simmered too long. We are not pathetic. Echoed back, igniting the air with conviction. The influencer caught the moment, raising her phone as if it could channel the energy of the movement. When she was right there, risking it all for us, you showed your true self, Lynn, the waiter shouted, stepping into the front line alongside the stranger, adamant in his resolve. And now? We're rising together. Lynn narrowed his gaze, assessing the power shift. Just as a cornered animal senses its fate, he grew visibly agitated. You think you can take me on? I've survived worse than a bunch of angry nobodies. The intimidation was spilling from every corner of his voice, a last-ditch effort to reclaim his dominance, but with the lights flickering, the stakes felt transformed. Something shifted behind the crowd. The unknown threatened on every side. Each heartbeat echoed rebellion, a steady reminder that their unity rattled Lynn's control. As the influencer's screen illuminated her face, she turned toward the crowd, a fire igniting in her eyes. "Let us show him what we can do." A roar erupted behind her. The chants built up like thunder, drowning out Lin's attempts to regain control, the tide unmistakably shifting, but he wasn't done yet. In a desperate move, he took a step back, raising his hands. "You want to end this like children in a schoolyard? Fine. If you need me to make an example, I will." He scanned the crowd, locking eyes with the waiter. "And you, my friend? You'll regret standing in my way. Name the price, and I will make it 10 times worse than before." The words hung heavy, like stones in the air, each one punctuating Lin's desperate grip on his power. The crowd's cheers dampened momentarily, uncertainty weaving around the edges of their courage. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, and this time, they went dark. The abrupt silence swallowed the noise, splitting the air like a knife. Gasps escaped here and there, breaths caught in throats. The sensation of dread slithered through the crowd. "Is this part of your show, Lin?" The stranger's voice sliced through the darkness, calm yet resolute. "Is this your final act?" Shadows moved, creating unfamiliar shapes amongst the crowd, further intensifying the confusion. Then, an explosion of light returned frantic, higher pitched than before. The influencer's phone screen showcased not her face, but a video feed, the images capturing moments few had seen. Confessions, betrayals, secrets, each second a dagger aimed directly at Lin's throne. The crowd gasped collectively, realization dawning. "What is that?" Lin demanded, voice rising in pitch, panic flaring like wildfire. "Your empire's foundation," the influencer replied, poised and confident, "built on secrets and manipulation. We won't let that continue." As gasps and murmurs swelled around them, the weight of the moment settled hard. Would Lin's crumbling empire expose him like a moth to flame, or would he find a way to extinguish the fire? A fresh wave of tension surged, questions igniting like flame. What secrets would come crawling out from the shadows? And as the crowd waited breathlessly, one haunting thought surfaced: what would it take to tip the scales once and for all? The air crackled with tension as the video continued to play, a nightmare unfolding for Lin. Images of him arrogant, dismissive flashed across the screen. Murmurs evolved into a discordant choir of outrage. It was as if the crowd had been kicked awake from a trance, their energy intoxicating. Lin's eyes darted around, panic flickering like candlelight caught in a gust. "You're playing a dangerous game," he shouted, clenching his fists so tightly the knuckles turned white. The large man behind him stayed rooted, fear written all over his face, his earlier bravado vanished. "Dangerous?" The stranger spat, stepping closer, their voice ice cold. "You don't even know what danger is, Lin. But you're about to find out." The influencer lowered her phone, the crowd thirsty for action, their breaths hitching in unison, electric with rage and hope. "What's your move now?" she taunted, arms crossed defiantly as the video painted Lin as the villain in everyone's story. Lin's mind raced. He considered his options, the clock spinning faster. He couldn't falter, couldn't show weakness, not now. "You think this changes anything?" he challenged, but his voice didn't carry the weight it once did. "These are just shadow games." "Tell us then," the waiter retorted, voice steady but fierce. "What comes next? Your empty threats or more lies? Every person you've silenced will stand up today." The crowd erupted, chants washing over Lin. They were like waves against a fortress, relentless, unyielding. It was a sea of collective discontent, ready to crash down on the facade he'd built. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Lin's face. This time, the bravado seemed false, an act that had become unsustainable. He took a deep breath, trying to mask the rapid rise of desperation clawing at his insides. "You think you can take me down with a couple of videos? You're deluded," he roared, but the conviction sounded hollow, like an echo fading in an empty hall. Suddenly, lights flared back on, revealing figures shifting at the edge of the crowd. A group emerged from the shadows, accessories to Lin's power, but today, even they seemed hesitant. Whispers danced between them, fingertips brushing over their phones, unsure of the stakes they were playing. "Look around you," the influencer shouted. "Your empire feeds on fear, but we're done being afraid." As if on cue, the stranger stretched out an arm, summoning the crowd's fury. "It's time to put an end to your reign of terror." For a fleeting moment, Lin felt the grip of panic tighten around him. The atmosphere was thick with the possibility of rebellion hanging in every breath. He had underestimated their resolve, their ability to rally together and challenge him. The chant grew louder, drowning out reason, reverberating against the surrounding walls. "Take him down. Take him down." But amidst the chaos, Lin sensed a flicker of courage in his followers, and a sinking realization bloomed. This wasn't just a rebellion, it was an awakening, and that terrified him more than anything. "Enough!" he finally shouted, voice laced with a quaver that he couldn't hide. "You'll regret this." Then he turned, adrenaline surging as he took a step toward the back, but a pair of shadowy figures blocked his path. As the noise fell to murmurs, the crowd's anticipation turned to confusion. "Your secrets can't shield you forever." One of the figures spoke, their voice cutting through the silence like a knife. Lin froze. "Who are you?" He spat, but deep inside, he felt the icy fingers of dread wrapping around his throat. "Just the beginning of your downfall," they replied, stepping forward into the light. The crowd gasped as one, their collective disbelief echoing around the room. And as Lin stared into the eyes of the approaching figures, shock pulsed through him, twisting his stomach into knots. What had he awakened just by trying to hold on to his power? The balance teetered, the weight of secrets pressing down harder with each beat of his heart. Would he stand or would he fall? The crowd's collective breath hung in the air like fog, uncertainty thickening around them. Lin's heart raced as the figures drew closer, their faces emerging from the shadows. He recognized one. She'd once been part of his inner circle, but she was different now, more resilient. The other was a stranger, exuding a chill that sent shivers racing down his spine. "Jia," he managed to choke out, desperation lacing his voice. "You've come to ruin me." "Why?" Jia stepped forward, her eyes locked onto his, fierce and unwavering. "Because I've seen what you can do, Lin. Your selfishness has cost people everything. We're not afraid anymore." Behind her, the crowd shifted, energy buzzing like a live wire. People murmured, tension swirling around them like smoke. They hung on every word, witnessing a confrontation that felt like a fuse burning down to explosive potential. Lin's mind raced, scrambling for a way out. "You're making a mistake," he barked, but the weight of his plea felt insincere, even to him. "You'll regret this betrayal." The stranger beside Jia stepped closer, a grim smile spreading across his face. "Regret? You're the one who will feel it first. Secrets have a way of coming to light, don't they?" Lin's throat tightened. He hadn't prepared for this. "What do you mean?" he demanded, his bravado slipping through his fingers like sand. Jia held up a phone, the familiar screen lighting her face. "This is just the beginning. Your empire built on fear will crumble under the weight of your own lies. You've underestimated them, and us. The truth has a way of getting out." A flicker of panic surged through Lin as he caught a glimpse of what she was holding. The crowd caught on, a ripple of energy igniting the air. They knew the stakes, some were recording, others whispering about sordid rumors they'd heard. "People are talking," Jia continued. "You've silenced them before, but look around you. They're standing with us. They're ready to fight back." The crowd roared, chanting her name. "Jia! Jia! Jia!" The sound echoed through the room, a chorus of defiance that pushed Lin closer into the darkness. "Stop this!" he shouted, desperate to regain control. You think you're in power now? I hold the cards. Not anymore, the stranger replied, his voice steady. You made your choices, and now they're haunting you. The truth will emerge one way or another. Lin felt the air constrict around him, a vice of revelation that sent him reeling. He was slipping, his breath came in quick bursts, each word from their lips a reminder of fractures he thought he'd hidden away. As the chant grew louder, tears tugged at the corners of Lin's eyes, hot, furious, stinging their way down his cheeks. This isn't over. He roared, jaw clenched, but the crowd didn't quiet. Jia took a step back, her phone poised in front of her, ready to strike. You don't get to decide when it ends. We do. Fury simmered dangerously close to boiling over inside Lin. He looked to the crowd, searching for any semblance of loyalty, but all he saw were faces alight with anger, eyes fixed on him with a newfound boldness that left him feeling small, and then, suddenly, it happened. The lights flickered and didn't return. Gasps filled the darkness, an eerie pause swarming through the air like the calm before a storm. Lin's heart pounded so loudly he could hardly hear the whispers enveloping him. What's happening? The questions surged, anxiety rippling through the crowd. Is this part of your plan, Lin? Jia shouted into the dimness, her voice cutting through the unease. Or is it just another lie? Lin's breath hitched. Power outages, chaos, it could be anyone's doing. Behind him, he could hear footsteps scattered throughout the darkness, fleeing or being drawn forward. Find the truth, the stranger murmured into the shadows, their voice barely audible but heavy with promise. And we'll see just how high the walls of your empire really are. As uncertainty began to spiral, Lin realized the game had changed. It wasn't merely about saving face anymore, it was about unearthing the hidden past, navigating secrets and dangers. That could take everything he had fought for. The darkness deepened, and with it, a revelation loomed closer: who could be trusted, and what lay hidden beyond the veil of his carefully constructed life. What if this power outage was just the beginning? The silence felt heavy, the kind that wraps around you like a thick, suffocating blanket. Lin's pulse thundered in his ears. In the pitch darkness, emotions swirled: fear, regret, and unease clashed inside him. It was chaos, but in that chaos, he could feel it starting to take form. The truth waited to burst forth. Jia! He called, his voice sharper than he intended. The crowd had transformed from a sea of eager faces to a murky void, their shapes indistinguishable. What have you done? From the shadowy edges came a bright flash, the light of a phone illuminating Jia's determined expression. It cast long shadows that danced around her, flickering a warning, a glimmer of hope, or perhaps both. You have no idea what's coming, Lin, she said. The fierce resolve in her eyes sent chills down his spine. The truth is already here. You think darkness can save you? You're mistaken. Lin shook his head, trying to dismiss the weight of her words. You won't win this. You're just creating noise. Yet, doubt gnawed at him. Was he really in control of this situation? The stranger leaned in closer, his tone deceptively calm. You might want to think twice about that. He stepped back, and Lin could see a glint of something metallic in his hand. A knife? No. Just a flashlight. But the darkness made everything feel more dangerous. Around him, whispers crescendoed into an uproar. Where is the power? We demand answers. Voices bounced off the walls, a booming echo of discontent that clawed at Lin's composure. Each shout felt like a dagger twisting deeper inside him. Beneath the uproar, a low murmur rippled through the crowd, creating an undercurrent of excitement and fear. Lin's mind raced. He needed to regain control fast. He had to summon the power of his position, the years he commanded respect, even fear. But the faces of the crowd reflected unity, their anger directed at him, not against Jia or her accomplice. They meant business. That phone is innocent, Lin snapped back, grasping at straws. It can't change the facts. You think I'm afraid of this charade? But Jia's voice cut through the noise with an edge that silenced the crowd for a brief moment. It's not a charade, Lin. This is your reckoning. A chance to face the mess you created. Lin felt trapped, cornered between his past and the damning future. The crowd swayed like a tidal wave, ready to crash down on him. In that moment, he could see it clearly, his empire built on fear was crumbling right before his eyes. What will happen if they know it all? The stranger said, as if reading his thoughts. What will happen when your secrets come pouring out like floodwaters? A bead of sweat trickled down Lin's back. The uncertainty was suffocating. The stakes grew higher as whispers transformed into murmurs, translating the chaos into imminent action. Enough! Lin shouted, summoning the remnants of his authority. But even he could hear the falter in his voice, the tremor of vulnerability that stole away his power. In the shadows, a figure lurked. Lin squinted into the darkness, straining to see. Who was it? The crowd was restless, shifting to catch a glimpse of the unknown, a silent query rippling through them like electricity. Are you not the one who said darkness reveals truth? Jia's voice danced at the edges of his perception. Lin swallowed hard, realizing the weight of their words hung over him like an impending storm ready to unleash the deluge. Panic seized him. What if this really was the end? What if the truth meant losing everything he had built? He turned, desperate for a won-over gaze, perhaps one glimmer of support or understanding from the crowd. All he found were crossed arms and hardened expressions, and just as the tension reached its peak, the lights flickered to life, an explosion of blinding brilliance. But in that instant, possibility and ruin shattered into view. Phones raised, faces revealed, and within the chaos, Lin noticed something deeply unsettling, a familiar face staring back at him from the crowd. Is that who I think it is? The stranger whispered, a grin slowly spreading. Malicious and victorious. As Lin stood frozen, blood draining from his face, he felt the ground shift beneath him. Who had stepped out from the shadows? What damning truth was set to unfold? One truth remained clearer than the rest: this wasn't just a confrontation, it was a full-blown war for his very existence. And the final act was about to commence. The tension in the restaurant bristled with an electricity that crackled like a live wire. The lights pulsated and finally steadied into an illuminating glow, the crowd caught in a liminal space between fear and exhilaration. They seemed to hold their breath, waiting for a revelation that could reshape their reality. Lin's heart raced as he beheld the once familiar figure stepping forward into the light. It was a face he had thought buried under the weight of his secret, someone he'd wronged, someone with a story to tell. Kim, his former partner in the business, stood there, radiating a confidence that struck Lin with paralyzing dread. Kim. Lin's voice faltered, barely a whisper. The crowd stirred, a wave of murmurs cresting as they recognized the woman who had once backed him, now a steady force of change. She stepped into the spotlight, cutting her way through the chaos like a knife through butter. Tonight's your wake-up call, Lin, Kim declared, her voice firm and clear, slicing through the air like an arrow. You built your empire on fear and deceit, and now it's time to pay the price. Faces in the crowd shifted from uncertainty to resolve. Lin's bravado crumbled further. You can't be serious. This is just a game. But deep down, he knew it was much more than that. The weight of his empire hung like a guillotine over his neck. Your game is over, Kim shouted, gesturing to the influencer who held up her phone, catching every ounce of disbelief and anger that now suffocated him. Ready to face the consequences of your actions? A hushed awe rippled through the nearby tables as patrons turned to soak in the groundswell of rebellion. I'm bigger than all of you. Lin screamed, desperation clawing at his insides. You need me. Without me, you're nothing. Look around. Kim countered, voice ringing louder than the clattering dishes and murmurs of disbelief. Without you, we have our voices. We have our truth. You thought you could silence us forever, but we'll scream until the world hears us. The billionaire's confidence teetered on the edge of collapse as anger swirled like storm clouds in the crowd. Eyes glinted with determination. This was their rallying cry. The influencer recorded as the crowd erupted into shouts and cheers, an unstoppable tide of courage crashing against the walls Lin had built. No! Lin snapped, clenching his fists, confusion and frustration warping his features. You're just a bunch of sheep. Count us as your wolves, because we're hungry for change. The stranger interjected, his presence a solid wall beside Kim. With that, the crowd exploded. Take him down. Take him down. Their chants surged, a fierce swell that engulfed Lin whole. The walls of privilege began crumbling around Lin, and his world spun faster. Panic tasted metallic on his tongue as he glanced at his loyal entourage, the hesitation evident on their faces. They too had felt the strength of the masses. They were shifting, ready to abandon the sinking ship. Keep your secrets, keep your lies. Kim roared. But know this, the truth is coming. It will claw at the edges of every empire built on injustice. The crowd's energy surged, feeding on that awakening tide of defiance. A chorus rose like wildfire, voices from each corner of the room experiencing a rebirth. The truth. The truth. They shouted, eyes blazing with purpose, and Lin, trapped in an inferno of his own making, felt everything he had amassed begin to slip from his grasp. His heart raced, the weight of the truth bearing down like an anvil, and in an instinctive act of desperation, he turned to flee, but the path was blocked. No longer just a waitstaff, the waiter stepped forward, an embodiment of unity and defiance. You can't run from us, Lin. There's nowhere left to hide. He wasn't just speaking for himself, but for all who had suffered under Lin's watch. In one final, determined stance, Lin felt the swell of the crowd against him, their voices crashing like waves on a rocky shore. I will not be extinguished. He shouted, but chaos had already taken root between the fractured relationships, and Lin's authority evaporated into the charged air. True power doesn't reside in wealth, Kim asserted, her voice ringing clear. True power lies in our voices, and tonight we reclaim ours. As she shouted those words, the restaurant erupted in celebration. Together, they were a force of nature, a torrent of hope rising high, leaving Lin out in the cold. As the cameras rolled and the social media storm brewed outside, the laughter that once mocked the waiter now mingled with cries for justice and change. Lin leaned back against the broken pillars of his bygone empire, the tension of the evening swirling around him like a forgotten memory. Hope, daring, grew wings in the hands of those once bound. Where do we go from here? The waiter asked the stranger, who merely smiled. Together, we forge a path where no one can silence us again. And with that, the night glimmered with transformation, their unfinished stories shining like stars breaking through the darkest skies. So, what did you think about this vibrant ending? Let us know in the comments. But hey, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately so you don't miss out on the next exclusive stories we have in store. Smash that like button now to help us feed the algorithm and fuel the momentum of this community. And don't forget to flood the comments section below with your reactions and theories about this epic conclusion. And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful twist. Don't wait even one more second to share this transformative moment. Your support makes all the difference.